What's going on, fifth grade team? Back at it again with another math video. It's the one, the only Mr. Spencer here again to show you an amazing math lesson. You ready? Alright, come on, let's learn. I'm gonna show you how to multiply and divide decimals. I want you to watch me as I locate the decimal, and then I'm gonna move the decimal the appropriate amount of times. As you watch me solve this problem, notice the three things that I do to help me solve this multiplication or division problem. Step one, I'm gonna check to see if we're multiplying or dividing. We know when we multiply that usually we see just that x in the middle of the two factors, right? That means that we're multiplying to find the product. And then when we're dividing, it looks like a dot, and then we have a line, and then a dot. All right, so the dot, that divisor bar, and then another dot, right? That tells us we're dividing two numbers to find the quotient. Quotient and product, they're both opposite. So again, math, we find the product. Division, we find the quotient. All right, so we're gonna check to see, are we multiplying or dividing? Step three, or step 2.5, I'm gonna check to see how many zeros does my multiple of 10 have, right? So if I'm multiplying by 10, we know that 10 has 1 0. If I'm multiplying by 100, we know that 100 has 2 zeros. And if I'm multiplying by 1,000, 1,000 has how many zeros? If you said 3, you are absolutely right. That's correct. So after I count how many zeros my multiple of 10 has, I am then going to locate the decimal. We know that the decimal is that little itty bitty dot, right? That separates the whole number and the partial number in the middle, right? I'm going to find that decimal, and then I got to move it to the left or move it to the right. Sing it with me. Move it to the left or move it to the right. Yep. So based on the amount of zeros that I have, that tells me how many spaces I'm going to move it. Whether or not I'm multiplying or dividing, that tells me the direction that I'm going to move it. All right? So let's take a look. So looking at the example, here we have 0.3 times 10 is equal to 3. So let's figure out, how do we get to 3? Like, how do we get 3? So first, I want to show us that we are multiplying and not dividing. So we have that x in the middle. That x in the middle tells us multiplication is what we're going to be using. So I'm going to circle that bad boy right there. Then I have to count the zeros in the multiple of 10. My multiple of 10 is, of course, 10. How many zeros do I have? I have 1 0. Find the decimal and move it left or right. I've got the decimal in my first factor. And do I move it left or right? That's a question. Multiplication tells me that I move my decimal to the right. So since there's 1 0 in the 10, I'm going to move my decimal over one space to the right. Remember, multiplication to the right, division to the left. So now if I move that decimal place over, I have 3.0. 3.0 is my answer. 3.0 is the same thing as 3, guys. 3.0 is the same as 3. Let's check out number 1. We have 0, this is an imaginary 0, 0.05 times 100. Or we read that as 5 hundredths. 5 hundredths. It's a weird word, but 5 hundredths times 100. So my first step, are we multiplying or dividing? That x tells us we are multiplying. If you said multiplying, you already know this. Step 2, count the zeros in the multiple of 10. I'm going to count 1, 2. There's 2 zeros in my multiple of 10. The multiple of 10 is 100. I counted my 2 zeros. Step 3, find the decimal. My decimal is here. I counted 2 zeros, so I'm going to move it over 1, 2. So now I move my decimal place there, and my new answer becomes 5.0, which is equal to 5. All right? Number 2, 0.7 divided by 1,000. I have 7/10 divided by 1,000. My first step, are we multiplying or dividing? Here we are dividing. So I know that when I divide, I move my decimal to the left as opposed to the right. So this was to the right. I'm going to move my decimal to the left. Next step says count the zeros. I got 1 0, 2 0, 3 zeros. So I'm going to find my decimal and I'm going to move it to the left 3 times. So if I move my decimal to the left 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it becomes 0.007. 0.07. I'm tripping. Tripping. Miscounted. You like my singing? So originally it was 0.7. I moved it 3 times to the left. 1, 2, 3. So now we have 70 thousandths. 70 thousandths. So this is tenths, 100 thousandths, 10 thousandths. Okay? Number 3, we've got 0.0009 times 10,000. This is a little tricky. I tried to throw you off. Let's see if we can get it. Remember, first step, is it multiplication or division? That X tells us we are multiplying. Step 2, I'm going to count the amount of zeros that I have. There's 1 0, 2 0, 3 0, 4 0. Multiplication tells me I have to move the decimal to the right. I'm going to move the decimal to the right. So notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So I have to move my decimal point 4 places to the right. Let's do it. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 9.0, which is equal to 9. So 9 tenth, 100th, 1000th, 10,000ths. So 90 thousandths times 10,000 is 9. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. All right, just to recap and just to review, again, when we're multiplying and dividing decimals by multiples of 10, it's important that we remember the 3 steps. 1, are we multiplying or dividing? You check that symbol in the middle or the operation in the middle, it'll tell us, are we multiplying or dividing? Step 2, count the zeros. Count them up, count them up. How many zeros do you see? Count it up. That'll tell you how many times you're going to bump that decimal point. The direction, whether left or right, is decided if you're multiplying or dividing. If you're multiplying, you're moving that decimal to the right. If you're dividing, you're moving it to the left. And the reason being, when we multiply, right, that number gets bigger. When we multiply, that number gets bigger. So 5 is bigger than 5/100ths, right? We divide, that number gets smaller. So 7/10ths is way smaller than 70 thousandths. And then when we multiply, it gets bigger. So 90 thousandths times 10,000 is 9. 9 is bigger than this number. All right? I thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to making another video. All right? See you guys later.